Thank you so much. It's good to be here.
Facebook made a huge bet in the messaging space by purchasing WhatsApp in 2014 for $19 billion. Since then, together with Messenger and WhatsApp, the company now has more than 2 billion users globally. Huge market. So Anand, I want to talk to you about the evolution of messaging, because since 2014, we've seen a lot more new features on messaging apps. Now you can play games, you can pay for goods. Companies are actually investing in virtual assistants to be embedded in messaging apps. Where is Facebook placing its bets when it comes to Messenger?
Yeah, so this has been a very exciting year for Facebook Messenger. To get everyone caught up, we now have about 100,000 developers on the platform. This has gone up from about 30,000 just a few months ago. So that's usually a really good leading indicator of developers investing time. We also shared in April that we now have people sending over 2 billion messages every month to businesses on Messenger. So this has gone up significantly since the launch of the platform. We're also seeing a lot of businesses turn on messaging through their pages. So we have about 70 million pages overall, of which about 20 million have turned on pages. And they regularly message back and forth every month. So this is a platform that is quickly gaining a lot of scale. And by the way, this growth is quite global. It's not concentrated in one part of the world. We also are taking steps to move it to not just as a set of APIs that are available for developers, but also to monetize. So we're launching some ad products as well. So this is at this point grown quite a bit, and we're just getting started.
Yeah, and you had some news out this morning about users starting to see ads on the Messenger platform. Talk to us a little bit about what motivated Facebook to actually do this, because I've actually checked social media today, and there's been some complaints about this new potential function.
Yeah, so this is a new product that we were launching at scale, and we've been testing this in 2 countries, Thailand and Australia, for close to 6 months now. We've seen data that we're happy with, and we're starting to roll it out more broadly. What this is there are finally ads inside of Messenger so that businesses can sort of go after the user base that is using Messenger actively. As we talked about earlier, Facebook is an extremely data-driven company. So this has been a long experiment, at the end of which we're pleased, and we're expanding it out a little bit more.
So users in Australia and Thailand have already started to experience this. Which markets are next? Can you elaborate?
So we are starting to roll this out with a view of getting it to be globally rolled out over a period of time. But that said, we'll continue to monitor and see what the feedback is like, and use that to roll it out even further.
It's interesting that you chose Asia Pacific markets to start with. Why is that?
So both these markets are Messenger dominant markets. So it's a good place to kind of leverage a large consumer base, and therefore that part of the data isn't varying during the other tests. So we picked 2 Messenger dominant markets.
Are you worried at all, though, that it might make users leave the platform altogether?
So we obviously take the consumer experience very, very seriously. Even though we're spending a significant amount of time on the platform. The platform exists on the back of a large consumer base, right? When developers want to build for a platform, they come and invest in the platform because a lot of consumers are using this platform, right? So we take that consumer experience very seriously, and we take the trust that consumers have on the platform very seriously. One example is all transactions, whether it's consumer to consumer or person to business, are double opt-in. And so unless both parties have agreed to be part of the conversation, neither party can message the other person. So this has actually created a very high trust system. And so that sets a really high precedent for what kind of consumer experience we want. And we want to continue to take that very seriously.
And clearly this effort will add to your monetization growth, right?
Yeah, and this is, so we think about this also as a way for the brands and the businesses on Messenger to be able to build their business, right? Like, so a lot of them, they want to have a plan for how they want to leverage this platform. So this gives them a complete plan, because otherwise, the story is there, but it's not fully complete, because I want to adopt the platform because the consumers are there. I want the APIs to build great experiences, and I want the ability to, get users to adopt that experience. So this gives them a full sort of cycle of tools.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the other projects that you're working on. So chatbots. How do you think chatbots will evolve in the Messenger platform?
Yeah, so at F8 we launched version 2.0 of the Messenger platform. So this was a big step forward, because the V1 that launched sort of created the word chatbots, because it was mostly NLP driven, and it was sort of in response to questions, right? What we heard from developers, talking to a lot of the folks here and everywhere else in the world, was that was great, but they wanted a full canvas of experiences that they could leverage. And so in 2.0, we now have web views and several other features which allow for a broader canvas of rich visual experiences on one hand, and AI-based, NLP-based experiences on the other, and everything in between. So that was a big step forward in terms of the evolution of the platform story. Mm-hmm. Two specific things that we heard from developers, which we solved for at F8, was we heard from almost everyone that we spoke with that why can't chatbots and group and threads be in the same thread, right? So if I'm, let's say, booking a restaurant and I'm talking to my wife, they're on two separate threads, mm-hmm. and I'm talking with her and asking if a different time is okay, and I'm booking the appointment. How cool would it be if they were all in the same thread and everyone could see what's going on, and the experience was inherently social? Mm-hmm. Well, so that we launched at F8, and it's called Chat Extensions, mm-hmm. and it's been adopted really well by developers. Everyone from Spotify to Apple to OpenTable to Kayak have adopted Chat Extensions. The other piece is people wanted to have more organic discovery tools. So we launched a discovery tab on Messenger, which is 100% rolled out in the US, and we'll be rolling it out globally as well. So we're pretty proud of where the journey is at this point. And
payments is emerging as one of the key battlegrounds for a lot of messaging companies. Where is Facebook at when it comes to payments? I know you have a beta payment function in the US. Are there plans to roll it out globally?
Yeah, so we think of payments as an enabling function when developers build experiences, and we think of it in three ways in Messenger. The first is, obviously, we want consumer experiences that are built on top of payments. So in the US, we have a group payments and a peer-to-peer payments transfer experience. We definitely want to roll that out to more regions globally. Now, we have to do it right by working with both the regulatory agencies as well as having a great consumer experience, because we're actually talking about people's money here. So we're taking the time to get that right. The second part of the payments focus for us is actually to have APIs for developers to use in their Messenger integrations, so that they can have native experiences as part of native payments as part of their experiences. And then the third is we're bringing really well-known FinServ brands on Messenger. So we already have American Express, we have Western Union, we have PayPal, etc. So these services that people use all the time that provide financial services, we're creating a great platform to bring them on. So payments continues to be pretty important for Messenger. Mm-hmm.
And some of your competitors are actually getting into artificial intelligence, voice assistant. How big of a deal is that going to be in the future?
So I think AI is going to be a vector around which pretty much a lot of industries are going to be reinvented. That I don't think that bears repeating in this audience. But what we actually really like is how much of the consumer experience it can help, particularly with discovery. So yesterday we launched an experience starting in the US, where if you're talking to your friends about recipes, we'll surface content from the Food Network, which is specific recipes. And so this, obviously, you have to have a high bar to get it right. And so we've been doing it for selective experiences. But that is the start of a direction that we want to go in, particularly as companies build chat extensions. These experiences can surface kind of automatically as people are talking about those things in threads.
I want to transition to talk a little bit about WhatsApp, because you guys compete in the same space, and yet you have a lot of differences as well. So how does that relationship work? You're part of the same company, but you compete in some similar markets as well. Is it a complementary platform, or do you see it as an internal competitor?
So we're obviously part of the family of apps that Facebook invests in, and there's actually a lot of things that are complementary to each other. WhatsApp has inherently grown globally and has a lot of learning there that we try to leverage that. And Messenger has started about a year ahead in terms of the platform focus, and so we try to share those learnings. But other than that, the two companies are very independent and are run pretty independently.
So which areas do you actually collaborate, and which areas do you think there is room for kind of getting rid of duplication?
Yeah, I would say if you're a messaging app, there's certain fundamental things that you need to do regardless of what your end game is. So from that perspective, there's some tactical functionalities that are similar. But other than that, we think of it in the long term as like extremely collaborative with each other.
In India, WhatsApp has a big presence. It's got about 200 million users. Right. Messenger doesn't have much of a presence. So in terms of the Indian market, because you spent time in India at Snapdeal, what is the potential for that market? And if you were to get into that space, how would you work with WhatsApp?
Yeah, so let me maybe explain how we think about this. So we don't necessarily think about it as a zero-sum game. There's even though both platforms have a lot of users now, there's still a ton of users who don't use either of those apps. So we don't stop and think about it too much as a zero-sum game, that if one app benefits from a market, the other has to lose. It's really about still building out the platforms and building out functionalities. So both products are very much in growth mode. And we don't really spend a lot of time thinking about it as a zero-sum game.
But is there room for Messenger in India? There's Hike, there's WhatsApp.
Yeah, so I'm glad we're keeping it in the family, and WhatsApp is probably, I don't know, many times larger than the nearest competitor. So we continue to sort of think of all features that we launch as pretty globally relevant. This is why a lot of developers are leaning in on Messenger, so that their services can launch in multiple countries. Not just that, but if you build a Facebook Messenger integration, it launches both on iOS and on Android instantly, so you don't have to worry about building two different experiences, and many developers actually love that advantage. So we sort of think of launching platform-level features that are globally relevant in everything we do.
Beyond India, where are the potential opportunities when it comes to Messenger specifically?
Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of traction in different parts of Asia, whether it's Lenovo launched a customer care experience very recently, which is doing quite well in different parts of Asia, and they're going to make it global. There is Rappler in the Philippines, which is doing some citizen journalism that is pretty innovative. We see companies in India, whether it's Urban Clap or Jugnu, who are seeing, starting to see some really good results on Messenger. The one that I think is super interesting is there's a Indonesian e-commerce company called SalesTalk, which they have a fashion advisor on Facebook Messenger. So they've built what we call a hybrid experience, where they've automated the response to about 35% of questions. So if you're saying, do you accept cash on delivery, or do you have this in a different size, they're able to use AI to respond to those questions kind of without human intervention. And they not only understand English, but they understand the local dialects and the local slang. And if they move it to a human, then they give them fashion advice and maybe suggestions and things like that. Mm-hmm. And we recently just heard from them that they're seeing 2.3x conversion increase on Messenger compared to all of their other channels. So we're starting to see some pretty good traction in various countries in Asia.
Okay. Back to India, because you spent a lot of time there. You grew up there. You also worked at Snapdeal. In 2015 and early part of 2016, startup valuations were going through the roof. Now the market slowed down substantially, and there are concerns about some of the startups not being able to raise money. The market has cooled down a bit. What is your view of the market in India, and do you think there's room for a Snapdeal and a Flipkart, or do they need to consolidate?
Yeah, the analogy that comes to mind is, I moved to Silicon Valley in 1999 when the Internet 1.0 companies were just getting started. And it was pretty much wild, wild west in the valley at the time. But then things became a lot more sophisticated. And the valley goes through these cycles every 7 or 8 or 10 years. And I think that's what's going on in various parts of Asia. So these cycles are, are horrendous to go through when you're in it, but they're actually good for the ecosystem because they actually allow for the best companies to emerge. And actually, I wouldn't be surprised if the next set of amazing companies are being built there as we speak right now, because those are also great times to start companies. And one of the other things is in Silicon Valley, for instance, every next generation of companies pulls talent from those who are part of the previous cycle, and they have their scars, they've learned a lot, and now they kind of don't repeat those mistakes again. I think that's starting to happen in India. There are a few of these companies where the next level of leaders are leaving to start companies, and so that's really healthy for the ecosystem as well.
Why did you leave Snapdeal?
I think, to me, I think the opportunity at Facebook was something I really connected with. The mission of connecting the world and bringing it closer is something that I personally really connected with. I think technology at its core should actually be a force for good and try to level the playing field for everyone. I've always sort of believed that personally. And Facebook is like super mission aligned with that. There's multiple platforms that try to do this, and Messenger is obviously part of that family. So mostly it was the chance to create impact.
What do you think went wrong with Snapdeal?
I don't necessarily think there's probably one thing that I would attribute to, and I actually wouldn't sort of give them up before it's actually over. Like I think we should actually wait for it to play itself out.
Okay, you were an avid investor in the past. You looked at about 30 deals,
yeah.
I think. If Facebook were to look at acquisition targets within the messaging space, which areas look promising to you?
I love how you frame that. So there's sort of three kinds of acquisitions that the company does. The first is obviously talent-based, and the company's done a bunch of those. The second is a piece of technology that might be important, and then the third is Oculus is probably in that category in terms of technology acquisition, and the third is traction and user base, and Instagram and WhatsApp are probably those three. So that's sort of the three ways we think about doing acquisitions in general.
Okay. At the beginning of our conversation, I laid out features that we already have in messaging apps. 3 to 5 years down the road, what can consumers expect that could potentially be surprising or shocking?
Yeah, I think the thing that I'm most excited about is a lot of the high frequency actions that we take when we're online. I think they're probably going to move more to platforms that are messaging based. It's just sort of if you're messaging people back and forth and you have some free time, you're going to do more tasks. So this is normal in a network between people and businesses, where if you look at a phone network, for instance, there was white pages where people could look each other up by first name and last name. And Messenger is today sort of the white pages of the internet, where people can look each other up by first name and last name. Once you're used to looking up people on the white pages, you also want to have the yellow pages, where you want to also look up a hair salon that's nearby where you are. And then the opportunity for the hair salon is to have a small, medium, or large presence in the yellow pages. So I think that opportunity will fully sort of play itself out. The other piece is AI sort of helping make for a much better consumer experience. We talked about that a little bit. I think there's just a ton of opportunity for both the consumer experience and the business experience to evolve because of things that are possible, that are just starting to be possible today. I think the third one, which we also briefly touched upon, is I think a bunch of large businesses are starting to be built today. and they're going to need a full set of tools, everything from basic analytics to tools to building rich experiences to monetization. And so I think that continues to be a big focus for us. So those are probably the top three that I would think about.
Okay, we'll be watching out Facebook in the future. Thanks very much, Anand.
Excellent. Thank you so much.